All right. So, false dichotomies. Been meaning to do something targeted directly at the issue of dichotomies in general, and how and why they are essentially all somehow at the end, at the very bottom of it, false. Especially within the primacy of consciousness paradigm, or primary consciousness paradigm, however you want to say that. Just kind of waking up and having at this talk that I've been meaning to have. So I've kind of like prepped the board with where I want to head with this, and then I'll add to it as I go along. On the way up to the mountains, there was some kind of a weird road noise going on, and I wound up ditching the footage because it was like too annoying, and it came out in the film. So I was talking about the false dichotomy of free will versus determinism. I'm going to rehash that on the board here as I go along, but only after having established that all dichotomies are false dichotomies. I'm going to just lay a bombshell out right from the outset, and then get into individual examples of false dichotomies, such as free will versus determinism, and a lot of different false dichotomies. It should get interesting. Just let this unfold. So somebody might say, well, okay, let's start with this, the problem of the one and the many. And this is where I should start writing. With Hermetic, I've been kind of like consolidating, like, tons of axioms into one brief, statement here for Hermetic idealism, for a modern thing. This is what I've come up with for a saying. The one is the many. This is kind of where we need to start. The one is the many. The many are the one. We'll go ahead and tag that as Hermetic idealism, because this echoes across all genres here, is in the primacy of consciousness genre, from ancient Hermetics and Vedic tradition and Taoism, Taoist thought, Zen Buddhism, all this stuff. Hermetics altogether they're of the primacy of consciousness. When the primacy of consciousness is the one that is interacting with itself as though it were many. This is how it works. This is the actual platform. This is the first principle. All is mind. The universe is mental. All is Brahman. All is Yahweh. All is God. All is the Tao. The one. The one is panentheistic. The one is transcendent and immanent. That's just panentheistic. God is both transcendent and immanent, everywhere, omnipresence. This is an ode to the one is non-local mind. That is the one, that is the many, and the many all break down to that one. Now you can start to see how this is what follows the intuitive logic. I've been speaking about intuitive intellect and intuitive logic is the sort of logic that is informed by the right hemisphere, the holistic mind of the human being that's connected to the heart in intimate ways, in very literal ways, and messages send from the heart to this right hemisphere. This is holistic mind, and it's within the capacity of all human beings. It's there, it's being unused by some people. But just like exercise, you can jolly well pick up some weights and do exercise. Well, you can exercise your mind as well. So I don't feel bad if I don't feel bad for you, and you shouldn't feel bad for yourself if it so happens you're not a user of the right hemisphere very well. You can learn to be, just like you can learn to pick up some weights and start small and build up and make yourself much stronger than you ever were before. It's not you against somebody else, it's you versus you versus your old self. This is mental alchemy. All of these talks, all of this stuff is aimed towards the betterment of individuals. The betterment of individuals equals the betterment of the entire collective. This is the thought process that goes into all of this stuff, all of this hermetics and all this public talking, considering what's allowable and out there to talk about, in increments as it's safe for public discourse, put it that way. I think it's safe to let people know that all dichotomies are false dichotomies. There's no reason to keep that from everybody. And this is the reason why. This ontology. Primacy of Consciousness ontology. So, when you take all truth, which is this, non-local mind is all true. There's nothing partially true or half true about all mind. The first Hermetic principle, there's nothing part true about Brahman or half true. Brahman is pointing to the truth. This could be argued for all the supreme gods of the pantheons that later became monotheistic and then misinterpreted their panentheistic roots. This is how you put right where once went wrong. The idea, if you are somebody who believes in God, you believe in non-local mind, whether you understand that or not, whether you recognize that or don't recognize that, that is what you're doing. And those who have the ability of that recognition recognize it in you. By default of believing in God, you believe in non-local mind. An omnipresence with no beginning or end. That is non-local mind, which thinks and speaks creation into being. The non-local mind is the one that creates the many within itself, and that is creation. That is the God, that is the creation. The God is the creation, and the creation is the creator. This is the big high point. This is the big understanding here. This is all within you. This is where the talks have been leading. I'm putting it to practice here. Putting it to practice, you can look at the world and realize that all dichotomies are false dichotomies, having understood that. It's the idea of this versus that. Well, what versus what? Are we talking about the one versus the many? This versus that? Here, I'll even color code this so we can follow. Red for the one, green for the many. So we can mentally follow this. This is polarity. This is duality. This is the world of experience. This is the world of forms, Platonic forms, things, thingness. This is mirror reflection activity, so that the one can interact with itself as if it were many, when fundamentally it couldn't be. That's what this is. That's what you're staring at right now. The many have always been and will always be the one. The kingdom of the Father is spread upon the face of the earth, but mortals, men, they say, but what they mean is mortals, do not see it for what it actually is. That's the Gnostic Thomas gospel. That's the meaning of it. You then graduate personally beyond the illusion or being fooled into thinking about that the world is fundamentally this versus that. It looks that way, and it is that way. There are thises and that's, and they are warring with each other, and that's why we have such a thing as wars between individuals and wars between nations. I mean, because this is playing out, but it's not playing out as a fundamental truth. It's playing out as something that's only half true. And people are treating the half-truth as if it were all true, when there is an all-truth to be recognized below the half-truth. This is the war in Israel. This is the Ukraine-Russia war. This right here is everything that has to do with conflict and negativity in the world is nothing but a half-truth. Always. Always. It's never different. The truth is that these conflicts are always the one interacting with itself as many. The wars are the one. So this could be understood as something like a cancerous activity going on within the one, where it's constantly battling itself, and there's all this aggression and hate and all this stuff. But it's all happening within the one as the many, in perception, perceiving itself as many. This is all mental. This is why the first Hermetic principle. The all is mind, non-local mind. The universe is mental. All the dramas and activities of the universe are mental in nature. This is why. This is where you just take it and put it to practicality. Well, how can that benefit you? Well, you can see through illusions. You can see through people. Okay, so what is this? The media, corrupt politicians. I don't know what else to say. This versus all this horse crap about this versus that is horse crap. It is half truths. It is never the full truth, and it's not the divine understanding. The divine understanding is that it is the one, and understanding that it's the one, you then have the ability to then recede and disengage this versus that. Now in the East, they can bring people into this kind of mindset through neti, a Sanskrit term meaning not this, not that, or literally it's not that, but people mean it, not this, not that. The way Joseph Campbell said it sometimes was that way. And he was the president of the New York chapter of the Vedanta Society. So he knew what he was talking about. Not this, not that, not the many. You realize that the many are just the one. This is known as world negation. You're negating the illusion. You're identifying it as illusory. Not that it isn't really that. It isn't really this separate thing and this separate thing. There is a unity here to be understood, and the things that seem separate are essentially one. This is the understanding. It's a very simple understanding, and it's the divine understanding at the core of all religious faiths within their mystical traditions. That's where it's found. All of them. Because it's particular to humanity. It's not particular to one race or one gender or any of this business. It's collective wide. It's human wide truth. That's what all truth is. When you understand that, the negation phase can turn into a phase of iti, and most people do not understand this teaching. I talk about it on non-dual groups all the time, and people have a blank stare. They've never run into this teaching. I did somehow, I guess I was meant to. But this is the next level. This is affirming the world. You learn that the world of forms is illusory. It is the way of half-truths, and you understand that unto yourself through, for me, direct experience. But I mean, also this can be understood intellectually too, without the direct experience. But it's stronger when you have the direct experience. If you've had the ego dissolution, then you understand that form and individuality and personal mind is not all that exists. That there's something more. There's something outside of this personal mind perspective that we're having right now. People who have the direct experience know that. I know that from a few off events that happened enough to where I understand it. I wasn't gone long time or out too long, but I was enough to know that there's something more. And then all of this. Then I came back and intellectualized the direct experience over time as I could understand how to unpack it somehow intellectually. This is such an attempt. That's all truth when you're into that direct experience. And you're getting out of the mindset of the personal minds and more into the non-local mind. You're getting either to that or somewhere on the way to that, because there's layers and layers and layers. This is the substratum issue. This is where you're going in. If they call it inward, because it's you're getting your consciousness is going towards inward, towards the substratum of reality, the mental reality, the non-local mind, and there's layers of stratum there to get to this. Well, once this is all understood, either through intellect or intuition, informing intellect, which would be direct experience plus intellect, however it happens, could happen different ways. A person can realize, wait a minute, you switch from the negation attitude of rejecting the world of forms to understanding that beneath the forms, I'm going to draw again, that underneath the forms is the divine conscious energy of the all in red. I'm just doing this for sake of, like, within you, the kingdom of the Father, the kingdom of eternity is within you. You were never absent from it, only in perspective. Eternity is right now, all of that. The non-local mind is part of the being of the half-truths. It's there, it's present. It's just subsurface, it's below the surface level, and you have to look below, and so that's what they're trying to get you to do here. Get below those surface appearances, that personal mind perspective. It is here. So then you realize the kingdom of the Father is spread upon the face of the earth, but men do not see it for what it actually is. They don't see it. But when you do see it, it becomes itty. It is here. The truth. What is here? The all truth. It's here. It's among us. It's within you. You're not absent from it. It isn't far away. There's no distance involved in this. It is the reality that we are experiencing in the moment. And then the world is transformed mentally and spiritually inside of the individual. This is the flow of realization. Now, of course, I've just led any horse to water that has watched this who didn't already know this. I'm preaching to the choir to a whole swath of people, but an even bigger swath of people have no clue about any of this. So, I can take it only so far, in other words. This is leading the horse to the riverside. And then, at that point, it is up to the horse to drink. We'll just call that the water. For intuition, direct experience, and intellect, this is the river. This is where it leads. World affirmation, affirming the world as it is. Because finally, if you can't affirm the world as it is, you've not hit the true depths of human spiritual potential. Put it that way. That runs deeper than what a lot of people consider spiritual. A lot of people have very shallow ideas of the term spirit and spiritual when you get to thinking what they mean. In other words, they never get it. Whatever it is they're thinking of as spiritual, it's still within this half-truth, green outlined mindset. It's on the way, sure, but it isn't there yet. And in a world where a whole lot of people have suddenly had a spiritual awakening, I guess since 2020, and numbers have greatly increased, I kind of think it's important to put this out there because there's more newbies than there are otherwise. And that being the case, there's people that probably haven't dove in and really digested and taken this into their soul yet. Maybe they paid lip service to it, or they understand it in piecemeal and halfways. But to get to the full way, and what happened to me is I was taking this in intellectually and then had the direct experience. So I can prescribe that. If you really pour into it intellectually, it's possible that your subconscious mind will then trigger and take you into a direct experience of holistic reality, closer to non-local mind, because that's what happened to me. I was an atheist at the time. I didn't consider myself spiritual, but I was locked on the logic of eternity and eternal existence and how the Big Bang cannot be the beginning. And next thing you know, I realized that everything that exists now, it has to be past eternal. Nothing can truly have a beginning, and I owned it inside. I owned up to it. I owned it and I really accepted that as the unavoidable truth. And then I went off into a direct experience of ego dissolution and getting closer, a window of insight towards the non-local mind. Somehow that triggered it. I was unprepared. I hadn't been doing meditation or any spiritual practice whatsoever. I was just into intellectual agnostic atheism, and then bumped into this truth about eternity by studying the Big Bang model. So it can happen anyway. I got me close to the water, and then I did drink. So it's like the science and focusing on intellect, putting intellect into the focus of eternity and the eternal principle. It got me next to the river, and then I did drink. So there's different ways you can do it. Other people come there through some spiritual path, and they don't care about the science at all. Hermetic idealism is dealing in both. We could all together, one or the other. It's multidisciplinary. It doesn't really matter. So it's like we understand. It's about having an understanding of everything, understanding the science, understanding the philosophy, and understanding the direct experience mysticism, whereas other people want to piecemeal between those three and not partake in the whole banquet, basically. When you've arrived here, if you ever get involved in any dichotomies from then on, it's only by way of you choosing to participate and going, man, all right, well, I'll go along with everybody. Because it's up to you at that point. You're a free, you know better. You know that the dichotomies are false. And if in knowing that, in me, in my case, if I'm just like, okay, well, most people don't get that, so I'll just have to kind of go along with what they're doing. Only to a certain point. If it becomes dangerous to somebody, or if you see the potential for something going in a wrong way, you can put your foot down and say, hey, listen, let's stop. Listen, this is a false dichotomy. Let's end this. It's a way to put down conflict. Understanding this is a way that you can, instead of being self-deluded inside and like raging around doing unnecessary conflicts that just don't need to be, you suddenly, as an individual, you can pick and choose. Your mind has gone deeper than that now, and it's up to you now. It's between you and God. It's in your mind, and your choices that you make from then on. It opens your eyes, so you're more responsible for the choices that you're making, in other words. So, that's the benefit of a talk like this. And I've kept it pretty short. I'm going to go ahead and just stop it there for this one, because, my goal has been to stay under 30 minutes. I certainly don't want to go on an hour. So I'm making the effort on my end.